With opening night of the NHL season on the horizon, it's time to take a look under the hood at Steele and I's Keeper Dynasty squads after our first drafts. Let's tap in and get this paper.
You're Locked On Fantasy Hockey, your daily podcast on fantasy hockey.
Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Happy Monday, my fantasy fanatics, on this fine September the 29th and the latest episode of the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast, your daily 30-minute source for all things fantasy hockey, NHL news, and of course, very soon to be nightly betting breakdowns. Shout out to the everydayers who continue to make us their first listen every single day. We could not be doing the pod without y'all, and we're repaying the favor with some fantasy takes, taking your team to the top. Today's show is brought to you by our friends at FanDuel Sportsbook, where right now, downloading the FanDuel app, new customers with $5 wagers that win get $300 back in bonus bets. Mr. Rodin, today's show, we got some details, listener league drafts going down this week, my friends, 2 of them. You and I have already done a couple of drafts on the Keeper Dynasty side of things. We'll take a look under the hood to see how we're feeling about our Keeper teams. But over to you, my friend, before we get there. Listener leagues, you've been doing a lot of legwork. I appreciate you. What do you got to say to our friends who have made it in?
Thank you so much for all the interest. We really did appreciate it. We really do appreciate it. And yeah, the fantasy league draw has taken place. Unfortunately, we aren't able to get everybody in. We have a lot of people DM us, message us, wanting to participate. I actually believe we had over 80 people want to join us this season. Only 2 leagues. We were thinking about maybe getting a third one in there. Just was a little too much for Flip and I, as we also have our personal leagues with our friends from back home. But we appreciate everyone who joined in the interest. You got the emails. Everyone is in. The buy-ins are now coming in as well. I really do appreciate that, staying on top of the buy-in fee.
Yep.
And we're really looking forward to it. We've got a really good group. We've got some returning people. Obviously, the top 3 teams from each league last year, they automatically get renewed. And we have some new faces as well, some new friends in the 4th year of doing this listener league, 5th year of doing this listener league. So no, we're really looking forward to it. And yeah, the draft coming up both Wednesday and Thursday, casual and competitive. Maybe we'll try to get a live stream, a live draft going up there. We'll try to do our best, obviously, with our busy schedules, work, school, dogs, everything going on. It's very hectic for both Flip and I, but we'll do our best to get a live draft for you guys out there. But we're looking forward to it.
The pet caveat is always something you got to keep track of, just as much of your fantasy team. And we also both did our first drafts of the year, and they both happen to be Keeper Dynasty drafts. And I am fired up for this week. We've got the 2 listener league drafts. It's draft season. All of this work we've been pushing towards, it's go time, my friend. So don't take your foot off the pedal. Stay tapped to the pod. I don't know how you feel about your team, Mr. Rodin. I'll turn it over to you if you want to share your screen. Get this
we'll start with mine.
Squad first. How does your league break down? GMs, team format, that kind of thing, and then how you did in this draft.
Yeah, so let's start with that. It is our 2nd year of doing our fantasy hockey keeper league.
Nice.
You're looking at the champion from year 1, the inaugural season. So I'm looking to go back to back in this situation. And team format and how everything is set up here for us is we have 7 keepers. I was a little bit taken aback about how many keepers we got after just 1 year, but we got 7 keepers. And as you can see on the screen, if you're watching on YouTube, the first 7 players on this roster are my keeper: Tage Thompson, Jason Robertson, Jack Hughes, Connor McDavid, Jake Gensel, Tim Stutzla, and William Nylander. So
nice.
I was the only team that didn't keep a defenseman. So I knew that was going to be a strategy going into this draft this year. I also didn't have my first round pick because I gave that up acquiring JT Miller and Adam Fox last season.
Nice.
But just to give you some sense of format here, it's categorical banger league. It's pretty much the standard category, standard format: goals, assists, special team points. We do have the plus minus in there. shots, hits, blocks, all of those things. I would say the only difference between this league and like what you and I do with our listener league is the category for defensive points. So that's why defensemen in this league are actually very important, because you have a specific category just for their points alone.
Right.
So, guys who are drafting Cale Makar, Rasmus Dahlin, Quinn Hughes, obviously, Zach Werenski after the fire season he just had, Roman Josi from what we expect him to do. These are top tier defensemen who get a lot of points, who can fill out those peripherals. And they usually win those categories. Over the years, I've been pretty bad at drafting defensemen. Like I said, I was the only team in this league that didn't keep one going into this year.
Right.
But yeah, so that's, standard format. But those were my 7 keepers: Thompson, Robertson, Hughes, McDavid, Gensel, Stützle, Nylander. And then let's just take a look at the first pick, which my first pick was in round 9, technically round 2, I guess. But what do you like when you're looking at the screen right now? Maybe just list off a few names. But my first pick that I went with in this draft was Jake Sanderson. Like I said, I needed a defenseman, and we expect big things from Ottawa. We expect big things from Sanderson going into the season.
Immediately when I look at your team, Steele, I think your keepers are sensational. And I have a question. How many teams are in this league, by the way? How many GMs?
There's only 10 teams. Only 10 teams. So
that's juicy. I like that. And honestly, on my keeper league, we're in year 11. There's 16 teams. And you'll see when we get to my team, the difference in what those first few rounds are. For example, my first pick in the round 1 was Jacob Markstrom. I needed some goaltending love. We'll get there. So I love that Jake Sanderson, Travis Konechny, and a player in Timo Meier that you and I've spoken a lot about lately in terms of kind of undervalued peripheral coverage. I think what jumps off the page for me is I believe I see Ivan Demidov there. And I see, if you scroll down a little bit more, I saw another player, I believe, there in Owen Tippett. Those 2 guys, not to say 2 guys make or break your team, but if you return to the offensive form we think Owen Tippett can do, and you have a good year from Demidov, your team, I think, is going to be a hard one to beat. I would say what I said to you the other day about your goaltenders, which I think we can talk about right after the break because we're keeping today short and sweet, might be the area that I would poke a hole in. But so far, what I'm seeing here from your team, it's looking studly. I think you're probably feeling pretty confident about running it back, at least at this point.
I'm feeling very confident, and my buddy who runs this league, he runs our year-to-year league as well. He's the commish. He does a great job. We go back and forth, in conversation, in person, over text message, and we had a conversation. It's like not really no other team besides our teams really compare or look like it's going to be a competition. We're very fired up about how these teams turned out for us in this keeper league. And again, I had to get a defenseman with my first pick, but when Travis Konechny and Timo Meier are there in the 10th round, and we just talked about Timo Meier and how I actually value him a lot higher because he fills out those peripherals. I had to jump all over them. I had to get my goaltender a little bit early. Again, it's keeper league, so it wasn't too early. This is the 11th round. It's technically my 10th or 11th player here, but you can see here, went back-to-back defensemen with Chychrun and Dobson. The fact that even Ivan Demidov was still hanging around in that 15th round, had to jump all over Demidov. Svechnikov as well, Zach Hyman, who's going to miss the first month, but, he comes back from injury. He gets thrown right back up there with Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl. And maybe the goaltenders aren't the best, but even with Joseph Wall's leave of absence, I thought that, he comes back at some point in the first couple of weeks, or at least the first month, and he just jumps back in with a 50-50 split with Anthony Stolarz. I've also been very high on Karel Vejmelka. I get him with my fifth last pick. I've talked about Nikishin. I'm taking a chance on him and what he can do this season for Carolina. Morgan Geekie, I just spoke about as well on sleeper picks for the Atlantic Division, specifically for the Boston Bruins, of course. And the last pick here, Alexis Lafreniere. So I'm very happy with how my team turned out. I think I've got a very solid group of keepers that I had going into the draft. Got some really good depth guys, like Timo Meier, like Jacob Chychrun, some skilled guys in Demidov, Michelli. Again, so I'm really happy with how this team turned out, actually. And, Yeah, I think I'm gonna run it back to back again this year. I think I'm gonna go back to back. I'm very confident.
I appreciate that. Let's talk a little bit more about your team. I've got my draft ready to go. The Keeper Dynasty realm, a little bit different when you're
It
looking at
is.
the approach. And you mentioned the 0G and what goaltending you have to kind of manage here, Steele. I'll show you what I had to do with mine in a second right after the break. And make sure you guys stay tuned all week long. October 7th is right around the corner, and it's go time, my friends. It's also time to give some love to our friends from Monarch Money. Today's episode is brought to you by Monarch Money. Most people can't name all their financial accounts or even what they're worth, whether it's 401ks, properties, investments, and when you don't have the full picture, you end up leaving money on the table. That's where Monarch Money comes in, an all-in-one personal finance tool that brings your entire financial life together in one clean, easy-to-use interface on your laptop or phone. Monarch is built for people with busy lives. If you've put off organizing your finances, Monarch is for you. Monarch does the heavy lifting for you so you can link all your accounts in minutes, see clear data visuals, get smart categorization of your spending, and meet control of your money without ever touching a spreadsheet. My favorite part, Steele. Don't let financial opportunities slip through the cracks. Use code LOCKEDONNHL at monarchmoney.com in your browser for half off your first year. That's 50% off your first year at monarchmoney.com with code LOCKEDONNHL.
And thank you so much for making the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast your first listen every single day. Continue to smash that subscribe button, the follow button, leave a 5-star review for your boys here, Flip Livingstone and Steele Rodin. Flip, do you have any last comments for my team going into the season? Do you want to get over to your team and talk about some goaltenders, or how you feeling right now?
I just quickly wanted to mention your last pick, in addition to what we said with the goalies, because I'm going to touch on the same thing in a second. But Alexis Lafreniere is an interesting one here because it's been one of those spots, Steele, that, we've been talking about him as a sleeper for the last couple of years. We've been talking about him as a breakout candidate.
Yeah.
A lot of conversations have gone down around this player, and it's because he's shown little glimpses, right? A couple of years ago, 39 points, 141 hits. Then 2 seasons ago, he's up to 57 points, and he finishes the year with 28 goals, and it's like, okay, he's entering his 23-year-old season, and then he fizzles out back to 38 points. Definitely a frustrating fantasy piece. I just want your take on where you would project him to land in terms of points this year because, and this is what I'll turn it back over to you with, right now, playing with Vinny Trocheck, a guy we love fantasy-wise, and of course, Breadman, absolute stallion, that could be a really good line. And I know he's had looks with these players before, but maybe this is just a case of a slower developing player who we know brings some peripheral category love, who has a lot of talent. Is this the year for him? At your last draft pick, it doesn't really matter. But what's your take on where you're projecting Lafreniere this year for point total? I'm intrigued on that one.
Yeah, I mean, I was very surprised he actually got all the way to the last round. I thought he would have gone somewhere maybe closer to where I drafted Matthias Michelli or Karel Vejmelka, somewhere in that 19-20. I mean, we have a big league, by the way. Like, this is including the keepers, there's 25 rounds. Like, we have 25 players on our team. It's a massive league for only 10 managers.
Yep.
But with Alexis Lafreniere, I was surprised he got that low. And yeah, I mean, 45 points in 82 games. It's fairly disappointing, but you do like what you get from this guy peripherally. Like, the value in this skill set is there. He can put up over 200 shots. He can put up over 115 hits, blocks. It's just a cherry on top for whatever he can get throughout the season. The fact that we haven't seen him really pop out as a star yet, the fact that we haven't seen him take that next step to a consistent level is what kind of maybe hinders people from drafting this player. I am very happy with how durable he's been over the last 5 years. I mean, he's only missed 3 games in 5 seasons. He's been very durable. He just, obviously the first couple of years, he wasn't really getting that big opportunity. He was getting thrown around top line, second line, third line, fourth line. He couldn't find comfortability. And, that's been a big problem with the Rangers, especially the last couple of years. Nothing's really felt comfortable from what I've seen. And, this is still a guy. And I think a guy like Andrei Svechnikov can also be thrown in that conversation. Because when I look at Andrei Svechnikov, he had his career high big year 69 points 3 seasons ago, but he's kind of hindered off as well and kind of declined 55 points, 52, 48 last season. That was also a guy who I've been high on the last 3 years.
Yes, you
I'm
have.
waiting for that. I'm waiting for that breakout season right there along with Alexis Lafreniere, and they haven't quite done it yet. So I'm a little bit surprised they haven't taken that next step. They haven't shown that consistency. Still worth a shot, especially with how this New York Rangers team plays and how how I'm projecting the Rangers to be this year. This is still a very good team. Like I said, they've revamped, they've reshaped their blue line. They've brought in a new culture compared to what we saw last year. And I think JT Miller getting the captaincy, being that leader type role for this club, it's going to be massive for them. So even maybe they're on the older side. You got Miller, you got Trocheck, you got Zibanejad, Panarin, all over 32 years old. Doesn't matter. They're all skilled guys. I'm really looking forward to, again, I don't want to go breakout year because I've said it the last 3 seasons now, but I think Svechnikov and Lafreniere could have a breakout season.
Lafreniere, a polarizing fantasy piece. Just wanted to touch on that. Let me set the table for my keeper team. And like I said, I believe this is year 11 or 12. I had Sidney Crosby, Rupe Hintz, Mason McTavish, Vincent Trocheck as 4 forward keepers. I also had Carter Verhaeghe, Seth Jarvis, Thomas Harley, Victor Hedman, Jackson Lacombe, and Darnell Nurse. And then my keeper goaltenders were Sergei Bobrovsky and Joseph Woll. So in this league, Steele, goalie points in category is actually, so it's not a cat league, it's a points league, but the points in the goaltending market are important. And in a 16-team league, the 0G strategy and a lot of guys keeping 2 goaltenders, the 0G strategy doesn't really hold true in this case because basically after the first 2 rounds, you're looking at some really, really thin options in the cage. For example, Tristan Jarry was going here in the 6th and 7th round in that area. And that's because there are no options there. Another example here, because I was looking at where Jet Greaves went, kind of a sexy little fantasy piece garnering a bunch of attention this year. Jet Greaves went in the 4th round in this league. So that just sets the table here for how little options there are, which is why I went with Jacob Markstrom with my 1st round pick. I was a 9th overall. I need some goaltending love. And when I looked at Jacob Markstrom's record last year, 26, 16, and 6, 4 shutouts, 2.50 goals against, and a 900 save percentage. Doesn't exactly jump off the page there with the save percentage, but he was pretty good. And he had a stretch of this team was really bad in front of him, defensively or otherwise. We know the injuries up front. What I'm trying to get at here is we haven't seen what this new look, quote unquote, Devils team really can do. Last year, they made a bunch of moves. We loved what happened in the offseason for the Devils, and they underachieved. I like Jacob Markstrom here as my 1st overall pick because now I've got Bob and Jacob Markstrom in the cage with Joseph Woll as a 3rd option. I'm feeling comfortable about that. I know some people would say you could have waited and gotten a little bit more creative. I've been burned too many times, and that's not how I do. However, those were the keepers. Let me hit you with the players that I drafted. After that, Ivan Barbashev, Nick Schmaltz, Sean Durzi, Boone Jenner, Alex Lafreniere, Zach Bolduc, Shane Wright, Braden McNabb, and then I rounded it out, Steele, my last 3 picks, and I can turn it back over to you for my take on this. I went heavy bangers because this is a banger league. We count blocks, we count PIMs, we count hits, of course. Martin Pospisil is going to hit the doors off of the Western Conference. Little bit of forward love. I got dual eligibility as well, Dakota Joshua, and my final pick, because the blue line is thin too, Steele, and I should have teed that up. There's 6 D spots, 4 right wing, 4 left, 4 centers. To me, 6 D seems like a lot. It's been a chirp I've had against our commish. I think maybe 4 or 5 is plenty. So I needed a little bit of peripheral coverage for my blue line in terms of a fill-in. So I took Ivan Provorov last off the board. And to give a little bit of context, Steele, players going here in the final round, Michael Kesselring, Luke Shen, Mikey Anderson, Timothy Liljegren, Connor Clifton. So I think I did pretty good with Ivan Provorov with my last pick here. But I would say my favorite couple of picks were right in the middle. Barbashev, Schmaltz, Sean Durzi. I like those 3. I got 2 Mammoth players. I think I did pretty good there with sticking to our guns too on some players that I really like.
Yeah, you absolutely love Sean Dursey, but I mean, when you're a 16-team league and you get really into those deep cuts, you need that type of information, that type of insight going into these drafts, and the team looks pretty solid. It's kind of funny that you were saying, like, again, like, it's not that you're saying that it was bad, but like the weak spot on my team is the goaltending. But we also, you and I just realized, also have pretty much the exact same goalies. I have Markstrom, you have Markstrom, I have Joseph Wall, you have Joseph Wall. I mean, you got Sergei Bobrovsky, which is absolutely solid. I have Karel Vejmelka, so that's a big gap between these two players. But no, your team's looking very solid. I love your keepers, obviously, and I think Barbashev is a great pick. I mean, for exactly where you got him in that value. We'll continue talking about these draft results after the break. I do want to this isn't involved in the keeper leagues, but I also had a year-to-year league draft with that same group of people last night, Sunday. And I got to show you, I got to tell you what happened in that second round with some of these goaltenders getting picked a little bit early, but we'll continue talking about your team after the break. Keeper league draft results. This episode is also brought to you by FanDuel. The NFL season is here, and FanDuel is making sure you're ready for kickoff with a can't-miss offer. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. We love using FanDuel because it fits exactly how we like to bet. Player props, building a same-game parlay, or even jumping in live as the action unfolds. It makes every game more exciting, whether you're watching your team or just keeping an eye on your fantasy lineup. It's quick, easy, and the best way to add a little more energy to those Sundays. So are you ready to play? Download the FanDuel app now by visiting FanDuel.com to get started. That's FanDuel.com to place your first $5 bet. And once again, thank you so much for making the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Pod your first listen every single day. Continue to smash that subscribe button, the follow button, leave a 5-star review. Flip. Team's looking good. We're getting ready for our casual competitive league. What, obviously when we're in so many leagues, or, just fantasy hockey fanatics, or in multiple leagues, like, do you carry the same strategy over, obviously, into each league? Do you try to make those different decisions or different picks based on, obviously if you're in 4 leagues, you're not trying to create the exact same team in all 4 leagues. You want to change it up a little bit. So how do you view that going into the year?
I think that's a really good question, Steele. And I do find, and I'm sure you'll back me up on this, sometimes it's easy to just kind of rinse and repeat and go back to the guys you like. And that's definitely happened here. I love Ivan Barbashev, Sean Dursey. I got Boone Jenner. I feel like I get burned by Boone Jenner every year. But if you
he burned somebody,
you got to stick to your guns at some capacity. I would also say this. It's a fluid situation, right? It happens on the night of the draft. You got to really see, I think, what good GMs do, what else is going on off the board, and really assessing what you have left. So how I approach it is it's got to be a combination. And that's why, as much as we love the boys at Apple and Geno's, and the whole 0G makes sense, you can't just have a strategy and stick to it. You've got to know what you're doing. You got to done your preparation. You and I will do our 5 top ways to dominate your draft probably later this week, since it is draft season. This is a case where know your format, know who you're going up against, and you don't want to be in the situation. That's why I asked you how many teams are in your league, in your keeper league, 10 teams. You got to know what you have left on the table and what you need to put into your lineup. So I actually, in this spot, I'm looking at my team. 7th round, I had to go with Blake Coleman. I personally don't love Blake Coleman. He doesn't bring enough peripheral love along with the offense. And, playing on the second line with Michael Backlund isn't super sexy. However, it was a spot where you're getting into the risk, and I would just rather go with kind of that baseline. So I look at it like this. Make sure you're prepared, do your research, and come into your draft with an angle. You want a couple of guys, get those, and then it's going to be a bit fluid. So that's how I look at it. I would say this too, just to wrap it up on my team. I got Zach Bolduc in the 8th round. I know he's only on the 3rd line, and the minutes might be an issue there, but if you're buying into what he did in St. Louis and 20-plus goals and the peripheral love, I think I did really well with Zach Bolduc here in a league this deep in the 8th round. And Shane Wright in the 10th round, that one could be really sneaky if Seattle can figure it out offensively.
Yeah.
It's a big if. However,
It is a
could
big
be
if.
sneaky as my third last pick.
I mean, we hope it can be, and we hope that he turns into a player this season that Seattle can depend on, your fantasy team can depend on. It's a hard situation because Seattle struggles offensively. They haven't had, you kind of expected Matty Beniers to take that step, after that rookie year he had, and he's kind of fallen back a little bit. Shane Wright's not quite there yet. They've got a lot of injured guys last year, so difficult situation. We hope Shane Wright is ready to go. Real quick before we wrap this episode up, I just wanted to throw this out there because we talk about drafting goaltenders late. I also just had my year-to-year league draft yesterday night, Sunday, and Flip. This was interesting to me. First of all, I just want to talk about the goalies real quick. But first of all, my buddy, he was in the 6th position. He didn't know who to draft, so he ended up going with William Nylander at number 6. Over Nikita Kucherov, over Pasternak, over Brady Tkachuk, Rantanen and Kaprizov, Kyle Connor, all those guys. So a little interesting to go with Nylander at the 6th spot. However, this is how the goalies shaped out in the first 2 rounds. By the way, 17-team league, 17 people in this league. So it's deep. It is very deep. But this is in the first 2 rounds. This is how the draft picks for goalies went down. Jake Ottinger, 16th. Connor Hellebuck, 17th. So Connor Hellebuck didn't go first, which is crazy.
Weird.
In going into the second round, Sergei Bobrovsky with the third overall pick in the second. Igor Shesterkin with the 5th pick. And then it goes like this, back to back. Vasilevsky, Gustafsson, Kemper, Wolf, Stolars, Blackwood, Aiden Hill with the last pick. That's over 10 goalies in the first 2 rounds. Whoa. So I started to panic a little bit. I was like, goalies are going quick. So I actually got Jacob Markstrom in the 5th round because he was the best goaltender available at that point. Yep. And it was very surprising to see, but I just wanted to get that out there because the first 2 rounds for goalies, it was absolutely bonkers.
And there you go. Sometimes you can have a specific set strategy and it goes out the window. Everything holds value if you can get them in the right round, my friends. We'll be here the rest of the week to make sure you can do that, my friends. And I'm ready to get after it, Steele. Hockey right around the corner.
Thank you so much for making the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast your first listen every single day. For your second listen, check out the Locked On NHL Podcast because there is no off season. We bring you the daily league-wide stories that matter the most with local coverage you love from Locked On. Make sure you're tuned in all week long. We got all that insight and breakdowns for your fantasy leagues this season, and we'll see you back here again tomorrow.
Peace.